My name's Tim Hills, a historian for McMenamins, and really excited to have this evening to celebrate 100 years with a focus on what was going on here in the 60s, particularly 1967 and 68. And we have a full night of history and music, which are my two favorite things, and appreciate you guys coming out. And we are going to start with a recitation. Buffalo Springfield, Grateful Dead, U.S. Cadenza, the Montels, Melodious Funk, Kaleidoscope, The Weeds, Amazing Charlatans, Thundering Herd, The Fugs, Portland Zoo Electric Band, Electric Prunes, Blue Cheer, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Laura and the Vipers, Butteville Tea Dance and Blues Band, Great Pumpkin, Country Joe, The Fish, the two of them never played together here, PH Factor, Allen Ginsberg, the Tweedy Brothers, the Redcoats, the Family Tree, Warlocks, Charles Lloyd, the Youngbloods, Mr. Lucky and the Gamblers, Big Brother and the Holding Company, and maybe even Grace Slick. The music is the immediate first thing people recall about the Crystal in the 1960s. It was an incredible soundtrack for sure, but there are so many other factors and stories that made the ballroom such a special place then. More than 17 years ago, it was my good fortune and great pleasure to be able to jump into and write about the history of the Crystal Ballroom as a sidelight of McMenamins' renovation of the Portland landmark. In the process, I got to talk to a lot of folks linked to the ballroom's past. It was awesome. And what sticks out most to me about the Crystal's 100-year history is the passion and the sense of belonging that it has always elicited. People from all of its different eras have remarked about the feeling of community and the community that they shared with their group during their time at the ballroom. Making this all the more remarkable, these various groups, when viewed collectively, were quite distinct and even disparate from one another, but each believed the ballroom to be their own and an extraordinary place to come together to escape the drudgery, the hardships, and prejudices encountered daily outside of the Crystal's walls. For that night, that dance, that song, inside the ballroom was a safe haven, a place to commune, a place to celebrate. What a perfect host and poetic muse the Crystal Ballroom has been and continues to be. And while McMenamins is its current custodian, the ballroom, its energy and soul, will forever belong to those who have given it life and helped to keep it going over its 100 and counting years. For many of you here tonight, this is a homecoming of sorts, so welcome back. And a hand to you. Tonight, we're focusing on just an 18-month period, January 1967 to through June of 1968. Not long at all in the context of a century, but man, that was an amazing year and a half. Portland was living in a Paul Revere and the Raiders world, but we were different, said Rena Welsh of the Crystals community in 67 and 68. It was just to be there was cool, Richard Smith recalled. And perhaps Greg Kreitzberg summed it up best. That period was so great, and it went so quick. Before 1967, there were decades of great performances, great scandals, and always dancing here at the Crystal, even when the dance was illegal back in those bad old jazz age days. The last gasps of the old-time dancing programs here at the Crystal came in 1965. Rock and roll and a fast-growing generation gap brought down that curtain. Heavy stuff was happening and Portland's youth, as across the nation, was engaging as never before. Civil rights, the Vietnam War, the sexual revolution, drug experimentation, the threat of nuclear annihilation. Man. In San Francisco, Portland found inspiration and kinship. There was much back and forth between these two cities. The coffee house folk scene was evolving into ballroom rock bands. So let's pause a sec and listen to this statement. There's not a single definitive history. There are as many valid histories as there are fans or participants, and as many perspectives on a given night's performance as there are those on hand to witness it. Not to mention those on the periphery who couldn't get in, but were nonetheless part of the total experience. Factor in drugs and alcohol, plus all the myriad good and bad trips that attended the trek to the venue, and you've got multiple accounts of the same reality. So this is actually how the Rolling Stone Illustrated History of Rock and Roll referred to the challenge of chronicling the Grateful Dead story. However, the description fits pretty aptly for the Crystal of 1967 and 68. So, the place, here we are. 1967, this is an aging jazz age ballroom that had been neglected and not kept up for years. But it still had the amazing floating floor that you're now sitting on, made of ball bearing and rocker construction. At the time it was designed in 1914, it was a novelty. Today, it's probably the only one of its kind left, perhaps anywhere. We've got the wonderful arched windows that in the late 60s into the 70s and into the 80s provided amazing light for artists who lived here during that period. And you have the balcony where the light shows were conjured and projected from. And the old original corner stage, much too small for most of the bands that played here in the 60s. And finally, the notorious elevator. Who's got a story about that? Pretty much everyone. It never seemed to work, and there are always problems. So I wanted to hit on a couple notable key characters from this period, starting with Whitey Davis. Who remembers Whitey? A few of you out there. I know you guys do. Whitey was a talented bluesy singer. He used to perform at Portland's original Cafe Espresso before opening his own place, The Folk Singer, in late 1965 or early 66. He was 29 years old at the time. He had come up from San Francisco, where he had been involved with the operation of the Avalon, according to some stories, some tellings. In the spring of 1966, Whitey relocated his folk singer from Southwest 10th, which was across from the Central Library, to right here at 13th and Burnside, right behind the Crystal. At that point, 1966, the ballroom was vacant. As the popularity for individual folk musicians waned in favor of rock bands and dancing, Whitey recognized he needed a bigger venue, and he found it next door at the Crystal. Over the next couple of years, he would be in and out of Portland, involved alternately with the Crystal and other venues on the West Coast, each of which encountered challenges of various sorts, often not helped by Whitey's sometimes unethical dealings. Later he moved to the East Coast, and in the early 1970s was road manager for none other than Miles Davis. During that time, the jazz legend liked to say when checking into hotels, "I'm Blackie Davis, he's Whitey Davis, I get the suite, he gets the single." A few years later, following an industrial accident that robbed Whitey Davis of his hearing, he took his own life in 1975. Moving on to another key person who sits on our panel, Michael McGorn was a young man who had previously operated a club outside of Los Angeles, and he partnered with Whitey as a business manager at the Crystal and became the more trustworthy face of the ballroom. McGorn scored a 1-year lease for the ballroom and a 2-year Class A restaurant license from the city. He had to offer food because of the restaurant license, usually pizza, hot dogs, and popcorn, in return for official authority to allow or to conduct dances as often and on any night of the week. No other music venue in the city had that freedom. It was quite a score that he made. McGorn said, must have been a city employer's blunder. It should have probably never happened. The devoted shoestring budget staff that worked here. They were a great cast of characters that changed periodically, but there was a core group, at least in the beginning years, or the first year. They ran the box office, they ran errands, took phone calls, cleaned up after the shows, and even did light shows in those early months using equipment borrowed from Portland State. Not sure they had permission, but they got away with it. Among those constant personnel was Rena, Fern, Angel, Tootie, Keith, Richard, and Bill. Some of those names might be here tonight. Gary Ewing, a hometown boy turned premier psychedelic artist. Gary made a life-changing road trip to San Francisco with his friends from the PH Factor Jug Band in 1966. There he witnessed his first light show at the Avalon Ballroom. Enthusiastic and intensively creative, Gary learned quickly the art of light shows and became a regular attraction at several venues in San Francisco, including the Avalon, as well as the city's Trips Festival. He returned to Portland in 1968, where he took up residence at the Crystal, creating his magical concoctions of light and color for the shows there. Gary tapped deep into the soul of the ballroom and gave back generously for years to come. Then we have Elizabeth Mumford. Is that a familiar name? I know it is to Michael. She was the head of the Women's Protected Division of the Portland Police Bureau, a disciple of Lola Baldwin, who we've named our smaller room downstairs for, and if you've noticed, her face appears on the brew kettle in the brewery downstairs. Now Lola, she was someone who was forever after the original dance hall master here at the Crystal, Montrose Ringwood. And this was a tradition carried on by Elizabeth Mumford, keeping the Crystal under intense scrutiny during the 60s. Then there were the good cops, Jim Pine, Joe Cooper. These police officers moonlighted as security at the Crystal. Lots of fun stories about them. One I just found out about in July 1968, just as the city was getting ready to close the ballroom, both Pine and Cooper testified before the Portland City Council in behalf of Whitey Davis and to the good conduct of the shows being held at the Crystal. What did they get in return? They were reprimanded and suspended by the commanding officer. So that brings us back to the music. And of course, the music was the thing. And we named the songs, named the performers. So now let's go on and hear some details from our esteemed panel here. Michael McGorn, as noted earlier, with his many managerial and administrative hats, saved the Crystal from derailing on many occasions. Say hi, Michael. Dwarf, say hi. A musician from the folk singer scene who helped McGorn and Whitey Davis open the Crystal, became a member of the legendary Portland Zoo Electric Band, and will, of course, be playing in the band set later on. And our third panelist, Steve Bradley. Say hi, Steve. Hey. Portland rock and roll hero and a member of Oregon Music Hall of Fame. He made a name for himself at age 17 as lead guitarist with the U.S. Cadenza.
No,
Rhythm.
pardon me, Stu Dodge.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. The Cadenza played the Crystal and the folk singer numerous times, often as the opening act for the headliner in from San Francisco. So we're going to run through some topics, recollections, reflections, conjecture, perspectives. Then we're going to open it up to you to ask some questions. And after that, we've got two great sets by two great bands. Thanks. Okay. So I love that quote. Portland was a Paul Revere in the Raiders town, but we were different. So let's start with that one. Why don't you start, Dwarf? I mean, what do you think about that? What was the scene like when you first got here?
Well, when I first got here, probably 64, somewhere around there, and I linked up with Whitey Davis at the original Folk Singers across from the library. Quickly moved into the new Folk Singers on 13th, and even more quickly moved to the Crystal. And the folk scene was really strong when I first got here. There were probably three or four coffee houses. The two right nearby were the Folk Singers on 10th and the new Cafe Espresso down in 2nd. And they both had jazz scenes going after hours. And the Paul Revere and the Raiders music didn't happen much here. But it wasn't long, I mean, rock and roll was coming. And so it wasn't long before the folk singers, people, Jerry Harley, Jim Wilkins, and some others formed the Great Pumpkin, which started performing at the original Folk Singers on 10th, and then continued to perform, various places around and all the way through. And other bands started up, the New Tweedy Brothers and the Spices, which were an all-girl teenage band, and a bunch of other bands, Nazar Blues Band, started up. And they all started up pretty quickly and got popular really fast. But it was never that kind of Louie type of band. It was always pretty different music.
Yeah, and where did you come up from?
I originated in the East Coast and then went to Berkeley for a while, and it was about a year in Berkeley, and a friend of mine had come up, Jerry Harley, who was a musician, had come up to Portland, and I followed him up after about a year, and he kind of introduced me to people in the music scene, and he and I played together for years and years.
So clearly you saw something in Portland in the music scene here that really...
Well, for one thing, I wasn't that good a musician, and if you're in the Berkeley, San Francisco area, the bar was very high, and so there was no way I was going to get into any band like Country Joe or the Dead or anything like that. But to come up here and be a folk musician, that was still possible, and people thought I wasn't too horrible at that moment.
Did you come up to be a musician?
I mostly came up because Jerry was up here, and I was bored with Berkeley, so I wasn't doing much down there. So he just basically said, you can get by here and make art and play music. So that's what I wanted to do.
All right. What lured you, Michael, to Portland from Southern California?
Well, I grew up here, so I've been here all my life. And I was down in Southern California. I ended up working in a bar down there. And from that particular bar, I would go to several rock and roll clubs in those days on Sunset Strip. And so I saw the music, and I knew a guy that actually owned and ran the disc. It wasn't a disc, it was. We had live music. But he used to always fascinate with the amount of money he had stacked on his desk and how he was doing. So I saw that, and I was starving, and I came up here, and I stopped at San Francisco. A friend of mine showed me the Fillmore. So I went and saw that. Wow, that's something. So I ended up back in Portland, and was going to Portland State and working nights in a grocery store. And this girlfriend of mine took me to meet Whitey Davis. And so...
folk singer?
Yeah, folk singer, right behind us. So I met him, we got to talking, and I was telling him, I want to open something at the Fillmore in Portland. Do you have any ideas? He says, oh, this is probably a building right next door. So at about 2 in the morning, we came around, there's 3 fire escapes out there. We came around and broke in the back, and came in here, and we were just...
Sorry? Broken?
But I don't know. I didn't need the right term. The door was open. We just walked in. Yeah. And it was just an amazing facility to see at that time. So from that point, I just said, I'm going to try and find this place, find out who owns it. And I did. A little guy named Moon Louie. And Mr. Louie owned 3 or 4 Chinese restaurants and had a lot of property. And his family still is predominantly in the Northwest area in terms of properties. So he owned it, and I talked to him probably 10 times. And I finally got him to rent it to me. As is, we would do no repairs, no nothing, and it was $300 a month.
$300.
Yep. But I had to do all the maintenance, all the work in here, and so, and it was really in a bad condition.
Was it?
Oh yeah, it was terrible. And there was a young fellow that used to come in, he was 16 years old. You mentioned his name earlier, Keith Cook.
Yeah.
And Keith Cook came down here and said, well, I'll help you if I get in. I said, really? Yes. And so he was going to Benson High School. He actually had some electrical skills, so he did the rewiring, he got the furnace working in here.
Yeah, I heard he got the boiler going.
Yeah, he got all this stuff going, and he was really a major part of making this place work. So we kind of had it going. Whitey was busy kind of trying to book bands and doing that, and I was trying to run the place. And so we started from there. And the first band I think we opened with, it could have been the Tweedy Brothers, the 27th. 2 or 3 other bands. So that's when we first opened in January. So my license was January 7th through January the next year. Yeah. And so Whitey and I ran it. We got into an argument down the line, so we split in different ways. As you said, he ended up being a road manager and did his thing. So after the year that I had and basically run out of whatever money I had left, I decided to phase out of it. But at that time, the family dog out of San Francisco, Chet Helms, they wanted to come up and run it. So that's great. Take it right over. And so all those years, throughout the year, once a week, I'd have to go meet with the illustrious Captain Mumford of the Women's Protective Division. So I have to go down Monday mornings to the police department, meet with her, and tell her everything that was going on. And she had a woman, Sheila was one of the officers that actually went, a female officer, and 2 or 3 men that worked here. The men, as you mentioned earlier, were motorcycle cops. Yeah. Those boys were fun, and they just do anything we came up with, and nobody cared, and we just had a great time. Sheila was a little bit shaky at times, but all in all, it was kind of a good group. And those 2 guys actually got themselves into pretty big trouble. I finished out, they left here, they popped up on the hood of a police car at KGW, still in the news leaks there, sitting on the hood of the car, and they'd gotten a hold of some acid and decided they were going to...
I've heard that story.
Yeah, well, it's true. And they were going to have a little fun.
Didn't they have a pig mask on or something?
Yes, they did. 2 each had a pig mask on. Yeah. And so from that deal, they ended up being arrested. They had done a couple of other nefarious things. So they both ended up in jail at Idaho for like 5 years. But I was kind of in hopes, are you guys here tonight? Are you out of jam yet? Anyway, they were great guys. We enjoyed it. So that was kind of that. In terms of the bands thing we did here, Whitey booked some of the bands, I booked some of the bands. We just tried to do the best we could to kind of get it going. We had a lot of great local people here that really made it work. We brought in some, national bands, probably 6, 7 through the year that I was here. And after that, when Mel's got in here, they brought in some bigger name bands that you mentioned. And I don't know how they really did. By then, I left here and I started promoting concerts across the United States in the major halls. So I was doing big, in those days, rock and roll shows at Three Dog Night, that kind of stuff. And we would do major hall sales. So I kind of skipped down and was out having a good time and actually made new lines.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, what was your musical journey that got you to the folk singer, to the Crystal?
Well, it was a Louie world, band-wise. This is about 65 when we got our first band going, and every high school dance, all the bands did Paul Revere and the Raiders set list, song for song, which was the frat rock thing. And we couldn't figure out why, if you went to the trouble to learn to play your instrument and put together a band, why you wouldn't come up with some cool new music. And that was just a mystery to us, so that's what we did. But it's hard to get a gig like that until we somehow discovered this world down here, folk singer and the Crystal and the Pythian and the Midtown and other bands from other neighborhoods were going through the same thing, the Louie thing. Not that I don't like Louie, but the Raiders did it, and I don't think you're ever going to top that. So this was kind of a new world for us, and it was allowed for a lot of creativity and escape that Louie syndrome. Not that I don't like Louie.
How do you think, I'd like to get your opinions of how the Crystal compared to the other main venues in Portland at that time, like the Pythian and the Masonic Temple and Midtown even? Yeah, start with you.
This place was really funky.
In a good way,
I guess to a kid, it's really adventurous. Wow, haunted, spooky. What the hell is this? But as far as condition, this one had not been maintained at all. The Midtown had been maintained, and the Pythian and the Oddfellows and the Masonic Temple, they were all in pretty good shape. They're old, but this place was real funky, as I recall. Nothing worked. Sometimes the elevator, most of the time the elevator didn't work. You had to hurt Fender amps up three floors. But we always thought it was really cool, even though it was really funky.
He's right. How about you, Dwarf? How would you compare the different places around town?
Oh, I think Steve pretty much has nailed it. Even though there was absolutely no money to repair the walls, paint, do really make the place really nice, I think the Crystal was probably still, for me, the premier place in Portland, just because it was an absolutely cool venue with the ball bearing dance floor, and the bands were often really cool. Some of the other places had cool bands too, but I think the Crystal booked more cool bands than anybody, and it was just an amazing venue. And so it didn't matter that it wasn't pristine and kept up so much. It was still really amazing.
With the zoo, you played the Cherricks a lot and the coffee houses in Portland State.
We played a bunch of places. We played college places. We played in the Dalles occasionally. We played in Eugene once in a while. We also played. We played quite a bit of a number of benefits. We played a lot of benefits, like in Laird Hill Park, for various things or wherever. And we were kind of the house band for the Carricks for quite a while. So, can I break it in and just tell my story about Whitey and the thing?
Yeah.
So Mike was talking about he and Whitey coming into the Crystal for the first time. So I was working for Whitey and Mike back there at the New Folk Singers. And one night about 11, Whitey came to me. He says, I want to show you something. Come with me. So we come in. And my memory is, I don't remember which door we came in, but he didn't tell me anything at all about this place. So we go in. It's pitch black. And we get up the stairs and we walk out onto the ball-bearing dance floor and it moves. And I said, Whitey, this thing's falling down. Let's gotta get out of here. And of course, he broke out laughing and explained that, no, it's cool. It's cool. But that was my intro to the Crystal.
I wanted to go back to you, Michael, and ask you again for your thoughts about Whitey. I mean, did you feel this was going to be a good relationship with him?
Yeah, when we first started, we thought it'd be perfect. I'm sorry. When we first started, we thought it would be a great relationship. Because I still have a lot of contacts in LA in terms of booking agents, that kind of stuff. Whitey had a lot of contacts too.
Is it true he had been in San Francisco, like at the Avalon?
No, that was afterwards, I think. I don't think it was before. No.
Where did he come from then?
He just materialized. He just looked at me.
And then he would disappear.
And he would kind of disappear and then come back around. But I don't know. It's a good question. I actually think he was from California somewhere. So you'd asked the question earlier, which I kind of enjoyed hearing, was what other places around town were here. The one that affected us the most when we were running the ballroom was a guy named Jim Felt.
Oh, yeah.
Are you here, Mr. Felt? No. Okay. So Jim had the photo club at Portland State College. He used that as kind of a front, basically. And he was able to put on rock and roll shows. So he would run against us on weekends, and he would do shows at the Temple, and the Pythian, and wherever. And it used to just make me nuts because he got away with it. And the school gave him money to book bands and stuff. I was just like, I couldn't believe all the crap that was going on.
How did he have connections for those?
I think he saw what we did, and he figured out he could do it. And he did it through the school because he could use, the schools, basically, their budget, their money to do that stuff. But it wouldn't be on campus. Sometimes it was. Most of the time it was off campus. So, but later on we became pals. But during those years we were not. He would send people over and, put those big firecrackers in the toilet, what do they call them, cherry bombs or something. He just, we were both going back and forth a lot on stage. But that was.
So with these other venues and the shows they put on, could they be dances formally? I mean, not formal dances, but my understanding is you had to have a special permit to put on it.
Yeah, we had 3 licenses here. The first one we used was a dance permit that I got from the city, and it was open for all ages. You could be 16 to 82, didn't matter. And we did that for probably 2 months or so until our good friend Captain Mumford got onto it. We're not mixing these ages. You need to split it up. You got to be 17 and under or 17 and older. So I told her she was nuts, and that would never work. But she said, no, we're going to do that. So we did that for a week, and we lost a lot of people. We couldn't, So I got to reading through the licenses. I had a restaurant license. Of all things, the city of Portland came in with health inspectors, and they inspected our fine pizza kitchen we had up on the top floor up there, and we got a Class A restaurant license. And that was a lot to my friend Keith Cook. But we managed to paint the floor white, and everything right in that little 10-foot square area was perfect. So he said, oh, so I started reading that license, and that's where I got onto the fact that with the restaurant license, you could have dancing for your customers, any age, didn't matter. So I ran off that deal for about another 3 or 4 months until they got the city hall together, and they came up with some more crap, and they changed the deal. So then we went to having concerts, which was no dancing, but here. Oh, well, that never worked for you. But that was the idea. So they'd come and sit down, but no dancing. That didn't go too well. But the concept was good. So we just kind of followed all the way through the years. Yeah.
So, Steve, who was dancing? Who came to these shows, and was there a lot of dancing? I mean, not just at the Crystal, but
people liked to dance. It was a social event. People hung out, got to know each other, but there was a lot of dancing for sure.
there was this great story that one of the young girls at the time who worked here described the dancing at that time as looking like bad aerobics.
Yeah, I would call it was the tree dance.
So
you made us dance.
Is that pretty close?
Yeah, you made that look good, Steve. It's going to come back now.
I'm not a dancer, but I've watched it for so many years.
It's you that made us dance.
Where were the most girls? Which venue?
Let's see. I'm going to say the ballrooms. Yeah, the ballrooms probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of them.
Yeah. Tell us about the mix of people who had come to the shows. I mean, I imagine it depended on the show to some extent. But
I'm going to say anywhere from 15 on up, early 20s, I guess, was this band.
so high school, college.
Yeah. The mix was really kind of half girls and half guys.
Oh, I didn't.
Well, in age too.
Oh, I didn't understand.
Did that differ at other venues?
No.
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 That's who turned out for the music.
One thing we did have when we first opened it, and we used to stand up there and look out that office window, the big Cadillacs and fancy cars would pull down from the heights up there, and they'd let their kids out about 2 blocks from here. They'd all run into the shrubs and the bushes up there and change their clothes and come out hippies. And come down here and that's where half rides came from. And our ticket prices, were like $2. So.
Weekend hippies, I heard that phrase.
That was it. They were weekend hippies, absolutely. And then we had, of course, the real deal. So there were nice hippies here.
What were some of the best shows you guys saw here that maybe you didn't play in, maybe you warmed up for them? But what do you recall as being some of the good shows here?
I really liked the local bands like Nazar, the Warlocks with their harmony, and what's the other one? Oh, Fred. The Weeds, yeah, the Weeds.
Yeah.
They were doing that post-British but before hippie type of rock and roll. I don't know what you call it. Really cool.
I heard that the Weeds really were kind of a sensation when they first got here because no one else was really doing what they were doing, or maybe not as good as them.
Well, they weren't like super great musically, but they had Fred, who was out in front.
That's right.
Fred broke through the third wall and climbed up the pillars, So they had Fred.
That made the difference.
That made the difference.
And the bass player. Their bass player was unique.
Yeah, I think weren't they from Sacramento or somewhere in California?
Las Vegas, wasn't it?
Yeah, Las Vegas, that's right. Yeah.
No, I mean, I enjoyed all the players, but it's not like they were super way better than everybody else. It's that they had Fred. Fred could do anything.
Who did you warm up for? Some of the touring bands that came through, or San Francisco bands?
The Peanut Butter Conspiracy, the Sockwood Camel,
That was our first.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
South Camp, yeah.
the Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead, the Doors, Moby Grape. That's all I can think of.
How much interaction would you have with the band members if you were?
With the Nationals?
Yeah.
Well, they were really nice. With the Grateful Dead, Stu blew up an amp, and Jerry Garcia says, go ahead and use our stuff, or anything you need, go ahead and use our stuff. I don't know if that's the way it is nowadays. I don't think you'd see that.
Yeah.
No, it was one of the things that I remember here is everybody really was pretty nice here at the what were their names? It became President Stills and Nash, but when they played Buffalo, yeah. When they played here, Dewey Martin was the drummer.
Yeah.
Dewey Boy was mad at Steve or somebody in the band, and they got up there and had 2 or 3 fights in what we had the office upstairs there, and it was quite a crazy deal. That was the only real band craziness that went on. So
Yeah, it was a lot of, that was a real community.
yeah, it was. I think so. I think everybody was good. Yeah. Yep.
All right, we got to talk light shows. I heard a story that Seattle banned light shows because they thought they were psychologically dangerous.
I can tell you about that. Yes, because I had to deal with Captain Mumford at the City of Portland Police Department. And she announced to me that the city of Seattle had banned the light shows. I worked with a guy up in Seattle, Barry something or other, and we put bands together from out of the Bay Area. And he told me that his light shows were banned. Couldn't happen. It was affecting people's minds. So in Mumford, they told me the same thing. And I said, no, you need to come and see one and see if it deranges your mind. Hopefully it would. No, she never came up here, but she sent all of the attendants up here. But that was it. She never showed up. But it never was a banned in terms of you can't do a light show. And I'll tell you one other light show was Gary Ewing was up there. And Gary and I came up with this idea that we would plaster these walls over here because we had so much daylight coming, we didn't have fancy curtains and things. So we had a lot of light coming in here. We figured out if we just put up some putty stuff, we somehow putty those walls shut.
You literally plastered?
Yes, we plastered. That was our plastered walls. So we did probably 3 or 4 of these windows, and we were really pleased with ourselves and how it went. And then we opened on a Friday night, and the walls started falling down. Boom. So that was one big thing. So these guys are the guys that really did the work and made that whole thing work. They truly revolutionized.
Yeah.
It was City Park. That was a major deal. The light shows were incredible, and you guys just did that.
Dorothy, didn't you help on some of the light shows?
Yeah, I did light shows here, and I did light shows at the New Folk Singers behind. And one of the things that actually did happen to us once, we did strobe lights because they were cheap and you could have them up. And I looked out in the audience once, and there's a guy who went catatonic, who was an epileptic, and the strobe light had put him catatonic. As soon as I saw that, we had to turn it off and get him back to normal. So there was some danger, but mostly the strobe was the danger. The rest was all, stuff, screens, film and stuff on screens with oil and water and stuff, and it was pretty simplistic and easy to do, and it wasn't dangerous at all. And not too many morals were broken, probably.
Did you work with Gary or?
No, I didn't actually work with Gary. I knew Gary, but we worked separately, and I think I worked a little bit here before him, and then about the time I drifted out of the Crystal, he was coming into Portland.
What was your light show name?
Didn't have a name.
Oh, you didn't?
It was just like,
there were some great names.
Can I get enough money to rent some equipment for tonight? Come on, it's only $7. We can do it.
Yeah. What did you do in your light shows? Can you describe it?
I had 3 or 4 opaque projectors, and we did oil and water stuff. And I think I tried to get some film stuff that we could project, but that was harder for me to get a hold of. So that was pretty. If I managed it was really hokey. And so mostly it was just oil and water and stuff. You would have 3 or 4 projectors and project stuff onto the screens and walls, and you'd have to have people who would do that for you, and they would get bored and wander off. You wonder why suddenly there's a blob that's not moving. It's because the kid doing it decided to go do something else.
Is what Gary Ewing did, was that another level?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. He had worked a lot harder at figuring out what you could do, and had a lot more technical ability than I did. And he did some really innovative stuff, I think. He was very good.
So this has gone by way too fast, but we promised we'd open it up to the audience for questions. So anyone who has a question, let us know. You can ask anyone or ask it just to all of us.
I didn't get into Portland music scene until the early 80s, but one of the things that's always intrigued me is how sticky Portland is, that we've got all these great musicians that even if they go away, they come back and they're still around playing great music for us. Any comments on that?
You can't quit the place, is that what you say?
Well, live and let live. It wasn't the big city. Pressure was off. You could get away with a lot. you can get paid. And that was a big part of it. Because in the 60s, I think you were already, like say LA, you were already paying to play.
Were there a lot of venues here per capita, I guess, per musician capita? That makes sense. I mean, was there always places to play?
Yeah, there was, yeah. And this was not counting adult nightclubs, which we didn't play in those until a couple of years later. Coffee houses and ballrooms and college and high school dances kept everybody going pretty good.
That reminded me, at 17 when you first started, were you limited to where your band could play?
If you played an over 21 club at that time, if you were underage and playing there, the breaks you would have to sit in the kitchen or go outside. But then during the set, of course, you were fine on stage, but you had to leave the building.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Michael, was the Crystal always all ages?
No, they split it up, maybe do 17 and under, then I can do 17 and over. I had my choice of things, and we did that for a while, but then after that we forced it into kind of an all-age thing.
Did that come along, I can't remember what you said, did that come along after you had started?
Yeah, we started, we had just an open dance program, so anybody could come in, but then it was after a couple months of that the Deer Captain Rumford decided that, it's not good.
Okay, another question?
What do you wish you knew when you first started?
Who are you?
Dwarf, why don't you take that?
Well, I'm probably not in a good position to answer that because I was more a dog's body than anything else. But I certainly wish I'd known more about what was going on, say, in San Francisco with both, not so much music because we knew about what was going on musically, but like light shows and stuff like that because I didn't have enough money to go to any of those shows. So I just kind of heard about it and then decided, wow, that's cool. I'll see what I can figure out. It would have been nice to have somebody teach me some stuff. And it would have been really nice if, people like Michael and Whitey had a few bucks in their pocket that they could have done more with the great venue. And, where do you find those few bucks? It really was hard. And it's not easy now. So
He's absolutely right. That was my answer to that question was I wish that I had been able to have more money to be able to open this thing, in a good condition and continue to run it. But we were always behind the 8 ball with money. We had trouble with fans, we had trouble with projectors, it was just on and on. And we never kind of got out of that hole for the year here. All of my pals that actually were doing other things, were all dazzled with it. But they just had no idea. They always thought we were making piles of money because they'd see all these people here and think that, we had a lot to do. It didn't happen that way. But that was the one thing and I was pretty young. I was like 24, 23 years old. So, I hadn't done all that stuff yet.
That's why I work for free.
Yes.
Question over here.
In regard to the edict against no dancing, I seem to recollect when I was about 9th grade, there was, at least for a short time, there was a situation where people would dance anyway, and there was some kind of a signal set up so that if somebody recognized somebody coming in the front door down below, that they'd do a signal and everybody would get off the floor.
I've heard that.
Yeah, that's true. We did do that. The other little signal we had was that nobody, for that year that I was here, was ever arrested in here for pot or drugs. So the deal we had with the cops is they actually caught somebody smoking a joint or something, they'd haul them out to the sidewalk, they'd call a city car, a police car, and let them pick them up on the street, but not inside the building. So that's how we got away with
Was that Vine and Cooper?
Yeah, those were our boys right there. All their friends, yeah.
I have a question about recordings. PH Factor had enough recordings to have an album released in 1980. They were recordings from your era, and I'm curious to know if Electric Zoo and Cadenza have recordings, either studio or live, that could possibly be released.
We did go in and do a 45. Rick Kiefer had a little studio in Northeast Portland on 32nd, I think. Right On Productions was his label. And the Tweedy Brothers got in there and completed an album. And the PH Factor got in there and completed an album. We got in there and did the recording for a 45, and then he left town, and we didn't ever get it pressed. But for to record in those days, you had to drag a big old reel-to-reel because there was no cassettes or anything portable, and that was really expensive. So there's not a whole lot of recording activity live in those days that I remember.
I can add to that. I played with the Warlocks, and we have some live recordings from here, a whole set.
Wow.
Not very good fidelity, but I digitized them. We also recorded with Rick Kiefer and Ride On down in that basement. We recorded them for an album. What happened was we got a little acetate and it kind of went its way. Later on I found out a guy, and I'm in touch with someone who knows him, hoards tapes that he's finding, and he found the original masters of ours and others, and he won't release them yet. They're down in his man cave, and he won't let us out now. But
who is this guy?
I'm not going to tell you.
You're not Marty's sites, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's got ours.
I'm sorry, what?
I wonder if he's got our little 45 recording.
He might, but this guy's got loads of stuff. Yeah.
Did you know he was recording the Warlocks when you played here?
Oh, David, my brother, he recorded us in the Magic Fern right over here.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
it's not that great quality, but you can hear the ambience in here. It's really great.
Is that from 67?
Yeah, 67.
Yeah. You're not Marty's sites, are you?
No, I'm Steve. Steve.
But Marty played with you guys.
Yeah, he did. He passed away
Of course.
a couple years ago. But yeah, he was our
He
lead
did
singer.
what?
He passed away a couple years ago. He was our lead singer.
Yeah.
But we do have 3 of those that were recorded in Ride On that turned out great. They released those. They were going to do a compilation or something. But I'm waiting for the other 7 or 8 tunes so we could do something with it. But yeah, there was some recording going on if you could get a tape reel to reel, as you say, up here.
Did you just do that on your own, or did you have to run it by Michael, or?
I don't remember what we did. He brought it in. He brought it in and set it up over here. And
Yeah, I said, do that, pay me $200. No, that didn't happen. Everybody did whatever they wanted to do, basically.
Yeah. But anyway, there were some recordings. That's the only one I know of personally. But the ambience here was just fabulous for playing. I loved it.
Well, the acoustics were much better here than, say, at the end.
Yeah.
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 And one of the best, as long as I'm talking, one of the best shows that I was at here, where I didn't play this set, we were up here, and I can't remember if we played or another band played here. Then the Weeds came on suddenly, up the balcony, and the lights were on. It was just so electrifying. I just flipped. It was the coolest thing I'd seen. They were just jumping a while. They were really showstoppers.
But you guys had that 4-part harmony going, doing the Beatles and Birds and Bee Gees and stuff. God, I'll never forget that. It's the coolest.
That's what music does.
All right, I'm sorry we have time for maybe one more question. We'll take yours. You had your hand up for a while.
One more from Michael. I'm not sure what capacity is nowadays here, maybe 1,000, but what kind of crowds are we talking about back in the day, and what was your subsequent feelings with the fire department in regard?
Well, I love the fire department. They were a wonderful bunch, and they would come up here every Friday afternoon, local fire guy, and take a little cruise here. And every once in a while, I'd have a little bottle of Jack Daniels that they would take with them. It always surprised me. But we were never really officially inspected for fire here, so it really, in my opinion, was kind of unsafe. These back stairs here were always full of crap. We couldn't really get out of there. But stairway, in terms of people, and it's still a law, I think you have to have 10 square feet per person. And we had 10,000 square feet here, this floor, that floor, of usable space for people. So we could legally put 1,000 in. When we did Buffalo Springfield, we actually had 3,200 people. Yes, bless your hearts. I hope some of you are here. I'm still here. So we were pushing people up the stairs. It was amazing.
Using the shoehorns and crowbars.
Yeah, that was the biggest night that we had.
Wow. All right. Well, please give a big round of applause for our. If you want to ask some other questions on the floor. One more thing, I think Are Bill and Keith back there? Okay, so at the back of the room there, Bill Keenum and Keith Cook have a book project. They're going to talk about it in between the sets coming up. But it's they're working on a history of the crystal in 1967 and 68, and they would love to talk with you about your story. So they're both back at the table now if you want to talk to them. And now we're going to have a little break while we get the stage set up for Cadenza. Thanks.
On the drum for this tonight, Mr. Johnny Coots, ladies and gentlemen. Next to me, a guy that plays so evil, I'm fully aware and I fully expect to spend a certain amount of time in hell for just even knowing him. Mr. John Ward. Over here, the man that holds it all down. You seen him in Quarter Flash? Not recently. In fact, maybe I shouldn't. Mr. Rich Gooch on the bass. The Leaves. Sorry. Eddie. You still fast?
Shit, there's a whole bunch of people here that are still alive. Oh. I'm not going to name names or anything.
Here's one from Muddy Waters. I've never heard of Muddy Waters until John Ward shows up at a rehearsal in 1966 with Muddy Waters' Greatest Hits. And that's when I knew that was one evil mother.
Call me on the phone sometime. You said you love me, baby. Please call me on the phone sometime. When I hear your voice, it eases my worried mind. One of these days, I'm going to show you how nice a man can be. One of these days, I'm gonna show you how nice a man can be. I'll buy you a brand new Cadillac. looks like a long distance call. I hear my phone keep ringing. Look like a long distance call. When I picked up the receiver, party said another mule is kicking in your stall.
You're gonna spend time in hell just for your knowing. Soul music came out. It was no longer like a black-white mix like the early 60s. It was stuff started to divvy up into categories. Now it's 10 times worse, 100 times worse today. The radio used to be able to get a great variety on the top 40 radio. This one is from Wilson Pickett, 1965. It's in the key of B. Everybody was walking around the street, just at random, going, "Hoo-tika!" Remember that? Or was that just me? We had a gig in Eugene at a place called Raja's. I rode back in the back, all the way down there in the back of John Ward's pickup truck. Well, it wasn't even your pickup truck.
Where did we get?
Oh, if I know. Well, we didn't worry about things like that.
We got ripped off for the gig, though.
Yeah, and so we, at Raja's, and so while we were packing up that Sunday afternoon, we were trying to decide, shall we just take this guy's PA system, in lieu of the money, or would that be robbery? We couldn't figure it out, so we passed on it. But what an asshole that guy was. I don't remember his name or anything.
Gene Lane.
What an asshole. So to finish the story, we learned this song there, and Stu entitled it "Rockin' at Raja's," and we didn't think it was funny.
I thought I made it up.
That is actually the Stumble by Freddie Key. Freddie and the Dreamers. First heard this song from Triple, who was just up here in the panel, and who's going to be playing harp at the Portland Zoo in a few minutes. And Jerry Harley, Jim Wilkins, and all them guys, and the folk singers. That's about all. Well, I'm going to get me a boss lane. Oh, that will treat me right. I work hard in the daytime, and I best easy at night. Big boss lane. But can't you hear me when I call? Said you ain't so big.
always been fans.
We were big fans of the Paul Whitaker band when it came out in the 60s. 6, 5. Here's one from there. First official full album, they had a little half album for it. Yeah. Now I've got to determine, we figured out the key, you got to determine who used this.
John Henry, a little baby. He was sitting on his mama's lap. He really didn't look around. A little piece of steel, said his hand was cold. Yeah, his hand was gonna be good.
This next tune is what happens if you got the Beatles and the Rolling Stones together. You said, why don't you guys write a song together? Maybe the Beatles could write the music and the Rolling Stones could write the lyrics. Probably the wrong choice, but here's what we think would happen. PH Factor and to Barefoot John Hendricks, who, as we all know, is Every Woman's Love Man. She said, "You go down to see Every Woman's Love Man." So you can see it all over the line. We are the Portable Zoo. The Portable Zoo electric band property. Okay? Just to my right is Sean. The first girl a lot of people ever saw me in the car. And she does it so well. To her right is Dwarf. To the far left is Mario Bolivar. Proud to and immediately to my left is Danny Jackson. Okay, now a little bit of a folk song. for music lovers. Okay, here's a tune from the time we never really did this back then, but we wanted to. We were thinking about it subconsciously. Get up in the morning, slaving for bread, sir, so that every man can fed. Oh, here's your answer. Get up in the morning, slaving for bread, sir, so that every man can fed. awesome beats. Okay, a little bit of jug band here. Now just a little bit of hard blues here from Sonny Boy Williamson, the first. this is a kind of a contemplative piece with a kind of interesting message on it. you have a good time? So there it worked. Portland Zoo. Many people. Thank you. If you'd like to hear more, we have a CD back there, which you can take home with you and then play at any time. And let me suggest you turn it on pretty loud.